Post.
Welcome back to the Kids Post channel. Okay, so you've done the hard yards. Your baby or child is sleeping through the night, well, most nights, and you're all in a good routine. But then he or she gets sick, or daylight savings is coming, or you have to travel, and now you're worried you're going to have sleepless nights again, and hey, listen, what's better than sleep? This impending change can turn your little angel into this. Well, we have Elizabeth Sloane, the sleep whisperer, with us today, and she's going to give some tips on how to manage these impending changes. Let's start with when babies get sick, or kids get sick, or babies are teething. You know, this can happen quite often in winter, especially if there's other kids in the house. Yes. What do we do?
I think the most consistent rule to give families, particularly when it comes to sickness, is that when your baby gets sick, it will happen, it does happen, particularly when there's toddlers in the home, change of season, change of environment, you need to pick them up. You need to go to them. You don't promote any form of self-settling, which we've spoken of before. But the most important transition is to remember, once your baby's well again and you've been back to the GP and he's back to the delightful toddler that we know and love, or baby, you then decide that night, rather than continually going in and picking up and doing what you had been before, he requires sleep, and to really encourage him to move back to self-settling. If you let it go 2 or 3 months and say, but Elizabeth, we got unstuck and he got unwell, it's mainly because your baby initially got unwell, but then you forgot to move back to really consistent, calm sleep settling patterns.
Daylight savings. For some of you watching, this happens twice a year. Elizabeth, if we're losing or gaining time, how does that affect the baby's routine? What do we do?
Very frequent, very common. Happens if you're in New South Wales twice a year, other states different. But the rule of thumb is try not to let your baby go overtired. So if we're moving into it, maybe for the first week prior coming up to it, try and get your baby used to going off maybe 10 or 15 minutes earlier. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to go to sleep. It's just to get them used to the new time change. And then the same with coming out of it. You might then start to give them 15-minute, making their bedtime just slightly later for 15 minutes until they build up to grab that extra hour.
What do you suggest if we need to travel with babies?
Most families realise that it's helpful to make a local flight either in the afternoon or the morning, so your baby can get sleep when either before they arrive or after. But if it's an international flight, these things aren't manageable. Golden rule, when you set off, to keep your local time. Then when you get to the other end of your leg, whether that be the UK, we'll say London, then transfer straight over to destination. So if it's in our time 7 a.m. in the morning, but it's 6:30 at night, I'd be then moving forward into the bath, the feed, the routine, and try and sink into local time as soon as possible. But whilst you're transitioning through the flight, and that's usually on long haul, anything from 12 to 24 hours, very important to stay local. And then when you hit destination, even though you'll have a very overtired, fragile baby and a very overtired, fragile mother and father, try and sink into local time as soon as possible so that he can adjust that jet lag.
To find out more, head to Elizabeth's website, which is on screen now, where you'll find tips and tricks and her brilliant ebook, The Gift of Sleep. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more episodes.